Hi, I'm Mike Hughes, Next Level Training.
Hi, I'm Britt Lentz.
We're so excited that you purchased a SIRT training pistol and you're taking your pistol craft seriously. The purpose and focus of this video is to give you some ideas of some best practices to get you started and also give you some safety tips as well as a little bit of armor's course in case something goes haywire with your pistol.
We really want you to be able to take this fine tool to take your training to the next level.
So go ahead and stay tuned and let's pound through this. My friends, let's touch on safety to make sure we're squared away on that. I like to use these safety rules. I use the 4 fundamental safety rules that are just common in the industry. The main 3 from the NRA: do not load the pistol until ready to use. Or the other version is treat every pistol as it's always loaded. Always treat it as if it's loaded. Well, with the SIRT training pistol, we interpret that as just keep all live fire tools and even live fire ammo away from your training area, your designated dry fire area. Then I walk my way up to the trigger. This is a big universal rule. Keep your finger off the trigger until ready to shoot. Be very disciplined on this. Even if you catch someone else handling a SIRT and they nonchalantly get that trigger finger in there when they're not ready to shoot, don't allow that. And then thirdly, do not point at what you're not willing to destroy. So make sure you have that muzzle only aligned at the areas what you are willing to destroy. Then finally, be aware of your target and what's behind it. This is very relevant with the SIRT because out of an abundance of caution, in case a live fire pistol got into your dry fire somehow, then we want to make sure that if a round does cook off, that it is only going to go in a safe direction. So only aim at good ballistic walls that have good ballistic backstop and what have you. I like to use exterior walls. I will never dry fire at an interior wall, particularly one where my kids are behind it or it's a bathroom or bedroom or something like that, okay? And there's a spillover benefit of that too, because if you ever have some kind of a life-threatening home invasion in your house, you've already pre-programmed walls which are not the best ones with the best backstops and ones that are the better ones at some subconscious level. So, my friends, take that safety very seriously with the SIRT, and let's make sure that we keep a clean 100% safety record with everyone who trains with the SIRT training pistol. Now that you hit the safety brief, let's start with some fundamentals. Let's start with probably the primary fundamental of grip. All these fundamentals are important, but grip's a real foundational one, which really everything builds off of. So let's go through this. We're going to cover this a lot more in our DVD, our SIRT Fundamentals DVD, but just to get some of the basics in, go ahead and take your pistol out, and with your right hand out like this, go ahead for dear life and grab a rope. All right, so grab a rope for dear life, and notice that your trigger finger is going to move a little bit inward as you do that rope style grip. If there's a string in between your mitts and you go violently, there's a movement of that index finger. So go ahead, put your pistol and go nice and high on the pistol and just push in the front part of the pistol. All right, just push in the front without a rope style grip. I learned this from Larry Yatch of Sealed Mindset. As you push in the front part, you're going to meet an objective of bringing the muzzle down to a consistent location, shot after shot, without it just wandering off in random locations. Now with the strong hand grip established and you're nice and high in the pistol, notice this little canal region right here. Take your support hand and really plug in there if you have a little bit of a gap and be nice and tight. A lot of meat on the pistol. I like to think of these thumbs as rubber gaskets, and I'm going to squeeze my chest to squeeze those together. I learned this from a gentleman named Rodney May, where as soon as I started to squeeze my chest together, it really brought things nice and loose but yet tight together around the pistol, so I can establish a natural grip of lining the pistol right where I see it, shot after shot, and also bringing that muzzle down consistently, shot after shot, are 2 main objectives of grip. So with that, you should have a nice tight grip, a nice feel around the gun where you have C-clamp style grip, you have a little chest squeeze together, and you have a lot of meat on the gun. So go ahead and just present out at a target and just go ahead and break a shot, okay? Just go ahead and look somewhere, present out, prep the trigger, see how it feels in your hands. As you extend outward, see if it naturally aligns with where you're looking at. Now let's go to grip establishment, because it's great to have this grip, but how do we establish this grip consistently? Well, go ahead and relax instantly and pull back, pull back, pull back, and notice the last area to touch the pistol on your support hand is your index finger. So the index finger on the trigger guard is about the last place to touch as you pull back. Well, it's reasonable to say it's going to be the first portion to touch when you establish your grip. So take note of where that feels in your hand and go ahead and establish your grip and extend out and then relax back. So you touch, you establish, you almost roll into that grip, and then you lock it in with your chest, and then you come back. Those are some fundamentals of grip, my friend, so play with that a bit. Get a good, comfortable grip that aligns the pistol naturally where you're looking, and you're starting this 1,000-mile journey. Now, once you've established a good grip, you may notice that you can shoot pretty well just by looking at a target within a few yards away and breaking the shot off quickly. This is just your natural point of aim. A good grip will allow a phenomenal natural point of aim. But when it comes to further target and a smaller target, that's where we really need to use our sights. So go ahead and present out on a further target and prep that trigger up and boom, break a shot. All right, but only break one shot on a far target. What you want to observe is perfect sight alignment, where that front sight is in between the notch and the top portions are all level. And then the sight picture is where the target is behind that perfect sight alignment. A common deficiency is where sometimes people have the sight too high and they lift it up too high. You'll notice that very quickly because the SIRT comes right out of the box aligned at about 15 yards, where the red laser is aligned about right at sight picture at about 10 to 15 yards. So just try that right now. Find a good safe target among your house or where you're at right now, and break a far shot and correct, all right? If you see it's off, then go ahead and just regroup, pull all the way back, and then reacquire the sights and break a shot. We don't want you walking in the shots, which is a deficiency with the SIRT and with live fire for that matter. When you're working sights, truly work your sights to master that ability to align that pistol up right on target. Trigger control. Trigger control is a very simple fundamental, but it's also one of the most difficult to master. Now, when you've done your sight alignment drill, you may notice that you don't quite have a nice clean dot on the target. You have probably a little bit of movement, what have you. Well, you can start your diagnostics now of understanding that a dash, particularly if you're a right-handed shooter and you see a lower left-hand dash, that is a common trigger mechanic deficiency for a right-handed shooter. And likewise, a 4 o'clock sweep for a left-handed shooter. So here's what I like you do with trigger control. Really, the principle of trigger control is break the shot, prep the trigger, break the shot, and don't move the muzzle. It's really, really that simple. Now, to master, like I say, it's a 1,000-mile journey. But here's a tip for you. To really isolate and work trigger control, go ahead and present out on target, all right? Present out on target, prep the trigger, break the shot, and just do it strong hand only. If you do it strong hand only, you are isolating your trigger control. It's on an island, so to speak, okay? You don't have the support of your other hand to lock that gun down. Now, a good grip is good for that reason. It can lock your pistol down. But to isolate trigger control and really see if it's doing its job on its own, just shoot strong hand only and try to get those dots. In the next section, we'll talk about some progressions of trigger control so you can exercise it more effectively. Now that you've had a few repetitions of just breaking a shot strong hand only and seeing if you can get those clean dots and not dashes, let's talk about some best practices for trigger mechanics. What I'd like you to do is go ahead and pop the switch back for the take-up indicator and go ahead and present out on target and prep the trigger. Prep the trigger so the lower red laser comes on. And then once it's fully prepped, get that final sight alignment if it's a difficult target and break that shot. All right, break that shot. Now, what we'd like you to do is reset and re-prep. All right, so you reset right to that click. If you go a little bit further, that's okay, out of abundance of caution if you go further, but then re-prep. So it really looks like this, my friends. You prep, you break, you're gonna reset and re-prep right back on there and be ready for your next shot. You're not finished shooting until you reset and re-prep and you see that lower red laser back on. Then from that point, go ahead and break, reset, and re-prep. Now the next layer on this, when you break, that upper laser, which is the green laser in the Pro model, and it is the red laser in the Performer model, that upper laser, the shot indicating laser, should only be a pulse. All right? You want to break, because after you break, the bullet's gone, reset, re-prep, and you're done, all right? So do some reps at that and work it at speed. We can work some slow reps, but really we want our mechanics to work at speed. So keep going faster and faster and faster until you can just exercise these trigger mechanics at speed, under time pressure or external pressures with perfect mechanics. Touch on one more tip on trigger control. Again, we go much more detail in the SIRT Fundamentals DVD, but go ahead and take your pistol and with strong hand only again, wherever you're contacting the trigger with your trigger finger, I don't care if you go tip, middle, or knuckle. I really don't care that much, but wherever you naturally land in that area, take that piece of flesh that's touching the trigger and push it high and outside. Almost like you tie an imaginary string to this part of your flesh and you're pulling this magic string through the gun and you're pulling it high and outside, high and outside. I'm not saying aim high and outside. I'm just talking about you aim right on. I'm talking about where you're pushing that trigger. Because what we want to do, we ultimately want to push it straight back because there's a tendency to hook it inward. Well, if we kind of push it high and outside, that sort of levels things out where these little joints are going to work together to actually compensate and push it straight back. So it's a quick little tip you can do in trigger mechanics, isolation drills of pushing high and outside, and it can help you get those dots. Now you may be wondering, why haven't we touched stance yet? Isn't that pretty foundational? Well, stance is very foundational, but I'll tell you what, for a lot of practical shooting, we want stance to be taught very intuitively. Because in some disciplines, very precise foot placement has a lot of value. Very precise foot placement and high power or bullseye shooting and such gives you a natural alignment of your hips so you can really dial in. But for a lot of practical shooting, speed shooting, or even sport shooting like IPSC and IDPA where you have acceptable accuracy zones and speed's a big factor, we don't want to focus too much on foot placement. So let's go ahead and give you a 10-second way to get in a good stance. If we're playing basketball and I'm going to your right or to your left, all right, and you're just playing defense and have to guard me, all right, if you get in that low position, left, right, and boom, you stop. All right, stop and freeze, you're going to be in a pretty good stance. Objectives of stance are that you don't get rocked backwards, all right, from the recoil, and you're in good shooting positions to get in and out of shooting positions. So a real simple athletic movement, like moving into a position and freezing, is a pretty good stance. Because if we think about it, we have about 180 degrees of rotation independent of our foot placement. Our feet can be in different locations, but as long as you're in that athletic position, then you've got knees bent, your nose over toes, you generally have a lumbar arch. All these mechanics come into line and they are not only sufficient, but they're actually desirable for the objectives of stance, which is movement in and out of positions and no getting rocked back during a recoil impulse. So go ahead and play with that a bit. Go and self-examine somewhat. I guess one tip on stance I like to do is once I get in a stance, all right, wherever my feet are, I don't waste time adjusting my feet. If I get in a stance and I'm going to shoot at a target very quickly, I'll put a little bit of awareness in my breastplate. So I'll kind of align my breastplate, because you can see between your knees, hips, and thoracics, you can align your breastplate in a lot of positions, and that's my start of my foundation, my upper turret foundation, to align that pistol on the target. Let's touch a little bit on draw. Now, we've already talked about grip establishment and how you can establish a grip on the gun, but let's get practical now and go into draw. I'm going to cover appendix carry draw, and here's what I'd like you to do. First off, safety. Let's make sure you never have your live fire gun around anywhere when you're practicing draw. Be extra careful with draw, because the better you are, the more subconscious you are, the more likely you are for a catastrophic incident of mixing up your tools and cooking off a round. As we said, in the safety, out of abundance of caution, make sure you have ballistic walls and you have those layered independent safety. But once you got your safety locked down, my friends, here's some fundamentals. I learned this from a friend of mine named Chris Collins. So with the concealed carry draw, really go a little bit of gross motor skills. Take your monkey paws like this, as we call them, okay? And go underneath your garment, all right? I am having an open garment like this, untucked in. If you tuck it in, you would simply grab your garment and pull it up. I have a lifestyle choice of just having a loose fitting garment, and that's just how I wear my shirts now, just pretty much categorically. So with that, I'm coming down and I'm lifting. I'm not just lifting just high enough, all right? I'm going twice as high. I'm going twice as high. And then I race down with my strong hand and I reach over the sights right here. When I'm over the sights like this, then I withdraw and finger off the trigger. I get my support hand right here on the trigger guard. And as you recall from grip establishment, we're in the same skill set highway now of establishing a grip, just as we have already worked on with grip. So now it's the same mechanics, my friends. You look at the target, align the breastplate, boom, roll out into that shot. Now you will notice when I train with the SIRT, I do not have a holster. One reason that is because the convenience factor that I can grab this around my house and have it ready, tuck in different garments, experiment with different garments to make sure, it works and I get some repetitions in. But when you go live fire, by all means, make sure that you have a holster which covers your trigger guard. And of course, train with that holster with your SIRT as much as you can, so that you are familiar with that equipment and you make sure it works for you. But really with the SIRT, we're talking about getting high repetitions, high volume. So what we find that works well is that we will carry what we call gangster carry, all right? And tuck it in and just get some reps in throughout the day. And you can do that very conveniently, but again, make sure you never confuse your live fire tool and your SIRT training pistol.
Another popular form of carry is the 4 o'clock carry. In the 4 o'clock carry, what we're going to do is we're going to do a very similar draw stroke. We're going to get a garment grab with our right hand first. We're going to lift high. We're going to get a left hand grab as we drop our hand down and affirm our grip. From here, once we grip the gun and draw the gun, we're right into the same position we've been training this whole time, with first point of contact on the base of the trigger, presentation, front sight, break the shot. What you'll notice again is the importance of safety. Finger off the trigger till the gun is presented. Another thing that Michael was talking about earlier that's very, very important is that we are very careful when we do it out of the holster. Anytime we're drawing out of the holster, you get onto your on-ramp of your highway stimulus, and what occurs then is you can go into a portion of training that is just direct. You're not thinking, it's subconscious competence. And what's occurring is, as you present that gun and break that trigger, you need to be very careful that it's not your live gun. Anytime you are training with a SIRT from the holster, make sure that you are doing it in a safe environment, a dry fire environment as we would call it, with a safe background, a safe backdrop.
One thing you can always do with your SIRT is buddy training. Now with buddy training, you get some natural competition flowing amongst a good friend. Always be very careful though, if a friend comes in your training area, he's not carrying live. So categorically, when someone comes into your space, check them for a pistol. Say, so you're carrying hot, you good? Nope, certain? Okay, I'm certain. You know, a little safety check, what have you, just can't hurt. Now we're not talking about force on force where we shoot each other. That's a whole nother level of safety check there. We're just talking about simply competing, not subconsciously coming in, oh, I want to dry fire, and pulling your live fire tool. So on that though, after we do a safety check, we have good ballistic background targets, we're gonna hit a little drill. So sometimes we like to compete. I'm an Appendix carry guy, Britt's the 4 o'clock carry guy. Okay, so we'll do little drills like say, hey, why don't we race on first movement to hit the target, hit the camera, okay? No cameraman's behind it, so it's a good safe target. I'm not willing to destroy the camera, but I think we're good here. So let's go on your movement since you're a little bit slower. You know. Oh yeah, nah. Now here's where the debate comes in, like who won, right? But you can get pretty creative to figure out who wins. And some of our content in the SIRT Fundamentals DVD gives you some ideas on how to use timers and things like that to start competing. So anyways, I'm actually using my LE model right now, our law enforcement federal model, which I wouldn't say it's any faster, but when it's my first movement, then boom, oh yeah. Yeah, it's in the hole. Okay. Well, you can see, my friends, it gets pretty fun. Make sure safety is first, but the natural competition of bringing another person into it is just really fantastic. And please also remember, when you have another person, when you go force on force, that means when you actually go against each other, that's a whole nother level of safety. However, we can be natural moving no-shoots, so to speak. All right, so if we're working a little bit, okay, let's do the same drill, Britt, but we just got to change positions, right? And it's not choreographed. I don't know which way it's going to go, and sometimes this looks really, really funny. Good blooper material. Let's just change positions and shoot that target. Oh, I didn't move it. Good, good. You know, and I tell you, my friends, like a little drill like that with a buddy can bring so much into it, because particularly if you film it and you can just watch your performance afterwards, the safety is the number one thing. Did I muzzle him? I'm not prepared to destroy him, but did I muzzle him when I exercise those mechanics? Now we're just doing it with SIRT pistols, all right? But we treat it just like live fire pistols.
The key to this is the dynamic movement. Dynamic movement incorporating with dual people really throws some curveballs into this. This type of training needs to be done. It gets you off of the flat range and into a more of a 360 three-dimensional range.
But by all means, if you ever think about practical shooting and defensive shooting, you're not going to have a clean range. You're going to have a lot of movement and possible chaos around. The more you can train that upstream safely and smartly, then the better off you're going to be. Now let's jump into some drills. Of course, we touch a lot more drills in our SIRT Fundamentals DVD, but let's get some basics so you can start jumping into some practical application of these fundamentals. I like this particular drill because it's a very easy setup, and it really taxes your skill sets of going near and using a lot of natural point of aim and such, and then having a transition and far and using your sights. So the drill is simple as this. You just identify 2 targets. I happen to be setting up 2 little tiki torch, cases here. So I draw, I go near, boom, natural point of aim, and then I prep, boom, and break on that far target, okay? So it's very, very simple. Now you can change this up and run it in a number of different ways. For example, you can just hit a far target, all right? So in your office, in your home, or what have you, just go ahead and draw and far target, boom, all right? And then just come back and near target, boom. you'll notice that you should be going much faster and fearlessly on the closer near target. Now, natural progressions on this, you can have different targets, different light switches around your house. You go farther, different sizes. I mean, the more random you have your environment, the more, I like to say, records in your intuitive database. So when you grab this pistol, particularly when you grab it after putting it down for a few hours, you get a 10-second training in, you're uncalibrated. You really see where you naturally can hit close and start pushing those boundaries. So again, just to reiterate the fundamentals of this near-far drill, I draw, I go near fearlessly, and then sights, boom, and get that training in, get those repetitions in.